The year was 2087, and Earth had spent 20 years as the newest member of the Galactic Confederation. The giant diplomatic ship that hung in orbit above Earth gleamed like a silver star. Inside one of its many meeting rooms, Commander Frank Bennett of the Earth Defense Force sat straight-backed in his chair. His blue uniform was pressed perfectly, metals shining under the soft lights. Across from him, Ambassador Zixtal of the Ruyarian species looked uncomfortable. The tall, thin alien had skin that shifted colors like an octopus when stressed. Right now it was a deep purple with flecks of red. "I understand your frustration, Commander Bennett," Zixtal said. His voice came out in clicks and whistles, translated by the small device on Frank's collar. "But the rules cannot be changed. Humans are not permitted to join the conflict against the Draxian Empire." Frank leaned forward, hands flat on the table. "With all due respect, Ambassador, Earth has advanced its military technology significantly in the past decade. Our soldiers are well-trained and ready to help. The reports we've received suggest the Confederation is losing ground to the Draxians. That may be true," Zixtal admitted. His skin darkened further. "But the Confederation Charter is clear. Section 47, Paragraph 12 explicitly forbids human participation in interstellar conflicts. This is non-negotiable." Frank tried to keep his face calm, but inside he was boiling. Earth was the only planet with this restriction. 300 other species could fight in the Confederation's wars, but not humans. It made no sense. "Can you at least tell me why?" Frank asked. It wasn't the first time he had asked this question. It wouldn't be the last. "What makes humans different from every other species in the Confederation?" Zixtal's 4 eyes blinked, in sequence. "I am not at liberty to discuss the reasons. The decision was made by the Founding Council 10,000 years before your people joined us. We all must respect their wisdom." Frank wanted to argue more, but he knew it would get him nowhere. He had been having the same conversation with different alien representatives for months now. Nobody would give him a straight answer. "Thank you for your time, Ambassador," Frank said, standing up. He kept his voice professional even though he felt like shouting. As Frank walked out of the meeting room, Lieutenant Amanda Wells was waiting for him in the hallway. She was shorter than Frank, with dark brown hair cut short and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Amanda had been his right hand for 5 years now. "How did it go?" she asked, falling into step beside him. "Same as always," Frank replied. "No humans allowed in the war, no explanation why." They walked through the curved corridors of the alien ship. All around them, members of different species hurried about their business. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Frank still had trouble believing they were real, even after 20 years of contact. "The Draxians attacked another Confederation world yesterday," Amanda said quietly. "The planet Lori 5. Reports say they wiped out 2 major cities before Confederation forces could respond." Frank stopped walking. "How many dead?" "Over 1 million, Amanda said. Her face was grim. "The Confederation fleet was too slow, too careful. The Draxians were gone before they arrived." This was the problem, Frank thought. The Confederation fought wars according to ancient rules. They announced their attacks. They avoided civilian targets. They retreated when casualties became too high. The Draxians followed no such rules. "We could help them," Frank said. "Earth forces could be deployed within 72 hours. We have ships ready to go." "And we would be breaking Confederation law," Amanda reminded him. "Earth would face sanctions, possibly even expulsion." They reached the docking bay where their shuttle waited to take them back to Earth. Through the large window, Frank could see the blue-white curve of his home planet. He thought about all the people down there, living their lives unaware of how vulnerable they might be if the Draxians ever turned their attention to Earth. "There has to be a reason they won't let us fight," Frank said, "and there has to be a way around it." Amanda looked around to make sure no aliens were close enough to hear. "I've been thinking about that. The Confederation won't let us join the war officially. But what if we could prove ourselves useful in some other way?" Frank turned to look at her. "What do you mean?" "I've been researching Confederation history," Amanda said. "Not just what they've told us, but reading between the lines. I think there's more to this ban than they're saying, and I think I might have found a loophole. The shuttle pilot, a young woman named Diane Carter, approached them. Commander, Lieutenant, we're ready for departure. Frank nodded. We'll discuss this back on Earth, he said quietly to Amanda. As their shuttle pulled away from the massive Confederation ship, Frank watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the Draxian Empire was growing stronger. Somewhere out there, people were dying because the Confederation forces couldn't or wouldn't fight effectively. Back on Earth, Frank and Amanda reported to General Harriet Mason at Earth Defense Force headquarters in Geneva. The building was one of the few that had survived the resource wars of the 2040s. Its old stone walls stood in contrast to the modern city around it. So they still won't budge, General Mason said after hearing their report. She was a tall woman, with gray hair and a face lined with experience. I can't say I'm surprised. General, I'd like permission to pursue an alternative approach, Frank said. Lieutenant Wells has some ideas that might help us understand why humans are banned from Confederation conflicts. General Mason leaned back in her chair. You're talking about investigating our allies? I'm talking about understanding our place in the galaxy, Frank replied. The Confederation is hiding something from us. I think we need to know what it is. The general was quiet for a long moment. The diplomatic corps won't like it. They've worked hard to maintain good relationships with the Confederation. With respect, General, good relationships don't mean much if the Draxians decide to attack Earth, Amanda said. We need to be prepared. General Mason nodded slowly. Very well. You have my authorization to pursue this, unofficially. Keep me updated, but be discreet. If the Confederation finds out we're digging into their secrets, it could cause problems. As they left the general's office, Frank felt a mix of hope and worry. Where do we start? He asked Amanda. I have a contact. In the xenobiology department, Amanda replied. Dr. Olivia Patel. She's been studying comparative physiology between humans and other Confederation species. I think she's found something interesting. Frank looked out the window at the busy streets of Geneva. The world had changed so much since aliens made first contact. They had brought new technology, new ideas, and new hope for humanity's future. But they had also brought new dangers. Let's go see Dr. Patel, Frank said. It's time we got some answers. 6 months passed quickly. Amanda Wells sat in her small apartment surrounded by glowing screens. Her living room had become a research center, with data from the Confederation archives floating in the air around her. She took a sip of cold coffee and pushed a strand of hair from her eyes. Computer, show me the list of extinct species again, she said. The largest screen changed to show a list of alien names and dates. Amanda had discovered something strange in the historical records shared by the Confederation. Humans weren't the first species banned from galactic warfare. There were others, all mysteriously gone now. Her door chime rang. Come in, she called out. Frank Bennett walked in and let out a low whistle when he saw all the screens. Have you slept at all this week? Amanda smiled tiredly. Sleep is for people who don't have mysteries to solve. Frank sat down on the only chair not covered in papers. What have you found? Look at this, Amanda said, pointing to the screen. 7 species all banned from Confederation conflicts under the same rule that affects us. All 7 are now extinct. Frank leaned forward. Natural causes? The records aren't clear, Amanda said. But the timing is strange. Each species disappeared within 200 years of being banned. In galactic terms, that's practically overnight. Frank was about to reply when his phone buzzed. He looked at it and stood up. Dr. Patel is ready for us. She says she's made a breakthrough. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the Xenobiology Research Center. The large glass building shone in the morning sun. Dr. Olivia Patel met them at the entrance. She was a short woman with quick movements and eyes that sparkled with excitement. Thank you for coming so quickly, she said, leading them through security. I've been comparing human physiology with other Confederation species for months now. What I've found is amazing. They followed her to her lab. Inside, One wall was covered with images of different alien species. Charts compared everything from bone density to brain chemistry. "Look at these 3 traits," Dr. Patel said, pointing to highlighted sections. "Humans have extreme endurance compared to most species. We can keep going long after others would collapse from exhaustion. We also have unusual psychological resilience under stress, and our capacity for adaptive thinking during combat is off the charts." "Is that rare?" Frank asked. "Extremely," Dr. Patel said. "Most species have 1 or maybe 2 of these traits. Humans have all 3 plus something else I can't quite measure. There's something about how these traits work together in humans that's unique." Amanda looked thoughtful. "Could this be why we're banned from fighting?" "It's possible," Dr. Patel said. "In the right circumstances, these traits could make humans particularly effective warriors. Maybe too effective." Their conversation was interrupted when Frank's phone rang again. He frowned when he saw the name. "I need to take this," he said, stepping away. When he came back, his face was serious. "That was Peter Morgan. He needs to see us right away. He says it's urgent." Captain Peter Morgan had been Frank's friend since their days in basic training. Now he worked with Earth's planetary defense forces. When they arrived at his office, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. 3 days ago, a Draxian scout ship crashed in the Atacama Desert, Peter told them. "We got to it before the Confederation authorities arrived." "That's against protocol," Frank said, though he didn't sound upset. Peter nodded. "I know, but I had a hunch." He pulled out a small metal cube from his desk drawer. "We recovered their data core." Amanda stared at it. "Does it still work?" "Partially," Peter said. "I've been working with Susan Rivera from Cyber Command to decrypt it. She's waiting for us in the secure room." Susan Rivera was young for her position, barely 30, but she was the best computer specialist Earth had. When they entered the secure room, she was typing rapidly on a keyboard. "Captain Morgan," she said without looking up, "I've managed to decrypt about 40% of the files. It's not good news." She turned a screen so they could all see it. "The Draxians are planning something big, a simultaneous attack on multiple Confederation worlds. They're calling it Operation Sunfall." Frank studied the maps and diagrams on the screen. "These are civilian targets, population centers." Susan nodded grimly. "From what I can tell, they're going after food production and medical facilities first. They want to create panic and strain resources." "When?" Amanda asked. "Within 2 months," Susan replied. "Some of the details are still encrypted, but the timeline is clear." Frank stood up straight. "We need to take this to the Confederation, immediately." They spent the next 3 days preparing their report. When it was ready, they requested an emergency meeting with the Confederation representatives on Earth. Ambassador Zixtal and 3 other alien diplomats listened to their presentation in silence. When they finished, Ambassador Zixtal's skin had turned a deep blue. "This is troubling information. We thank you for bringing it to our attention. We want to help stop these attacks," Frank said. "Earth forces can—" "That will not be necessary," another diplomat cut in. This one was a Moravian with 4 arms and metallic scales. "Confederation forces will handle the threat." "But the same way they handled Lori 5, Frank asked, unable to hide his frustration. "1 million dead because your forces were too slow and too predictable?" The room grew tense. Ambassador Zixtal rose from his seat. "Your concern is noted, Commander Bennett. We will increase security around the targeted systems. The information you've provided is valuable, but the ban on human military involvement remains in place." After the diplomats left, the 4 humans stayed in the meeting room. "They're going to get more people killed," Peter said angrily. "Maybe not," Frank said slowly. "They wouldn't let us help before because we had nothing to offer but theories. Now we have solid intelligence about Draxian plans." "And they still said no," Susan pointed out. Amanda looked at each of them. "What if we don't ask for permission?" The room went silent. What she was suggesting was serious. Going against Confederation rules could mean sanctions against Earth or worse. "I have access to an experimental ship," Peter said after a moment. The EDF Phoenix. It's fast and has some technology we've reverse engineered from Confederation designs. Frank nodded slowly. Dr. Patel's research, Amanda's historical findings, the Draxian plans. I think it's time we found out why humans are really banned from galactic wars. This would be against direct orders, Susan reminded them. We'd be on our own. Sometimes you have to break the rules to find the truth, Frank said. I think this is one of those times. They looked at each other, understanding the risk they were about to take. The fate of not just Earth, but many Confederation worlds might depend on what they discovered. Let's do it, Amanda said. Let's show the galaxy what humans can do. 3 months later, the red dust of Mars swirled around a hidden base tucked between two large rock formations. Inside, the EDF Phoenix sat ready for launch. The ship wasn't large by Confederation standards, but its sleek design made it look fast even while standing still. Frank Bennett walked through the ship's main corridor, checking systems one last time. They had spent weeks retrofitting the vessel with technology salvaged from the crashed Draxian scout ship. Susan Rivera had managed to adapt some of the alien systems to work with human technology. It wasn't perfect, but it would give them an edge. Engine room reports all systems green, Amanda Wells said, joining him. She handed him a tablet showing the ship's status. Weapons? Frank asked. Everything we could get without raising alarms, Amanda replied, plus some special surprises George put together. George Winters was their demolitions expert, a former Earth Defense Force specialist with a talent for making things explode in creative ways. He had joined their team along with tactical specialist Lisa Chen, both bringing skills that would be essential for what lay ahead. Frank nodded. Gather everyone in the command center. It's time. 10 minutes later, the small crew stood around the holographic display in the center of the room. Besides Frank, Amanda, Peter, Susan, George, and Lisa, Dr. Olivia Patel had also joined the mission. She wouldn't be going into combat, but her knowledge of alien physiology might prove useful. The plan is simple, Frank said, activating the display. A star map appeared with one planet highlighted. Based on the Draxian files Susan decrypted, we believe their first major attack will target the agricultural world Neva. It's a key food supplier for 17 Confederation worlds. Lisa stepped forward. The Nevans are peaceful. Their defense forces are minimal, mainly focused on weather control and crop protection. They won't stand a chance against a full Draxian attack. And the Confederation? Dr. Patel asked. Peter shook his head. They've increased patrols in the sector, but their nearest battle group is 2 days away at top speed. If the Draxians strike, they'll be long gone before help arrives. Just like Lori 5, Amanda said quietly. Frank zoomed in on the planet. We'll arrive at Neva 12 hours before the predicted attack time. We'll stay hidden in the system's asteroid belt until we confirm Draxian presence. If they show up, we move in. And if the Confederation shows up first? Susan asked. Then we leave, Frank said firmly. This mission is about saving lives, not starting a diplomatic incident. But if we're the only help available, we do whatever it takes to protect the Nevans. George rubbed his hands together. I've got some special gifts for our Draxian friends. They won't know what hit them. The crew spent the rest of the day making final preparations. At sunset, they gathered outside to watch the Martian sky turn deep orange. No one said it, but they all knew this might be the last sunset they would see. The next morning, the EDF Phoenix launched quietly from Mars, using a stealth system Susan had designed to hide them from Confederation monitors. As Earth shrank behind them, Frank felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. They were breaking rules, risking their careers and possibly Earth's standing in the galaxy. But if their plan worked, they might save millions of lives. The journey to Neva took 9 days at maximum speed. When they arrived, they positioned themselves in the asteroid belt as planned, running silent with minimal systems to avoid detection. Now, we wait, Frank said. They didn't wait long. Just 15 hours after their arrival, the ship's sensors detected multiple warp signatures entering the system. 5 Draxian warships, Amanda announced, reading the scanner. They're heading straight for Neva. Frank watched the tactical display. The Draxian ships were moving quickly, not bothering to hide their approach. They expected no real resistance. "Any sign of Confederation forces?" he asked. Peter checked the long-range scanners. "Nothing within 2 light years. The Nevans are on their own." Frank took a deep breath. "Then so are we." Battle stations. The EDF Phoenix came to life, systems powering up as they emerged from the asteroid belt. They raced toward Neva, pushing the engines beyond safe limits. On the planet below, small Nevan defense ships were already rising to meet the Draxian threat. They were outnumbered and outgunned. "Open a channel to the Nevan Defense Forces," Frank ordered. Susan worked her console. "Channel open. Nevan, Defense Command, this is Commander Frank Bennett of the Earth vessel Phoenix. We've detected Draxian warships approaching your planet. We are here to offer assistance." There was a moment of silence, then a surprised voice answered. "Earth vessel? We were told humans don't participate in Confederation conflicts." "We're not official Confederation forces," Frank explained. "We're an independent group, and right now, we're offering to help save your people." Another pause. Longer this time. Frank could imagine the confusion and hurried discussions happening on the Nevan side. Finally, the voice returned. "We accept your assistance, Commander Bennett. Our forces are already engaging the first wave, but we cannot hold them for long. Send us your tactical data," Lisa requested. "We'll coordinate our approach." As information flowed between the ships, the crew of the Phoenix prepared for battle. George checked his special weapons one last time. Lisa studied the Nevan defense patterns and the Draxian attack formation. "They're using standard Confederation tactics," Lisa observed. "Predictable patterns by the book approaches, and the Draxians know exactly how to counter them," Frank said. "That's why they're winning." Amanda smiled. "But they've never fought humans before." The Phoenix dove into the battle, surprising the Draxian ships with its speed and unconventional approach. Instead of the formal, almost ceremonial warfare the Confederation practiced, the humans struck hard and fast, targeting vulnerabilities and using tactics the Draxians had never seen. George deployed his special gifts, modified drones that attached to Draxian ships and rewired their systems, turning their own technology against them. Lisa coordinated with the Nevan forces, teaching them on the fly how to use their environment to their advantage. The battle was chaotic, brutal, and effective. Within hours, the Draxian attack had faltered. 2 of their ships retreated, 1 was disabled, and the remaining 2 were fighting defensively, no longer a threat to the planet below. As the Phoenix circled back for another attack run, a new alert sounded. "Multiple warp signatures detected," Susan announced. "Confederation ships." Frank felt a mix of relief and worry. "Looks like the cavalry finally arrived." "Just in time to see what we can do," Amanda said with a grim smile. The largest Confederation ship hailed them immediately. On the screen, a stern-looking alien with crystalline features appeared. "Unidentified Earth vessel. This is High Commander Vexor of the Confederation Security Council. You are in violation of Section 47, Paragraph 12 of the Confederation Charter. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." Frank looked around at his crew. They had saved Neva, but now they would face the consequences of their actions. "Understood, High Commander," Frank replied. "We will comply." As they powered down their systems, Amanda moved to stand beside Frank. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. Frank looked at the tactical display, showing the now safe planet below. Not for a second. Frank Bennett expected a prison cell. Instead, he and his crew were brought to Celestia, the capital world of the Confederation. The planet was unlike anything they had seen before, with crystal spires that reached into the clouds and gardens that floated in the air. The humans were given comfortable quarters in a building near the Grand Council Hall. They weren't locked up, but guards posted outside made it clear they weren't free to leave either. "This isn't what I expected," Amanda said as they gathered in Frank's room on their 3rd day. "Why aren't we in a cell somewhere?" "Maybe they're grateful we saved Neva," Susan suggested. Peter shook his head. "I don't think it's that simple. Something else is going on." A soft chime sounded at the door. When it opened, Ambassador Zixtal stood there, his skin a calm blue shade. "Commander Bennett," he said with a slight bow. "Your presence is requested at the council hall. All of you." The group exchanged glances but followed without question. Outside, a floating platform waited to take them across the city. As they traveled, they saw members of dozens of different species going about their daily lives. "Is this a trial?" Frank asked the ambassador. "An inquiry," Zixtal replied. "The first of its kind in over 1,000 years." The council hall was massive, with high ceilings and walls that seemed to shift colors like Zixtal's skin. In the center was a circular platform surrounded by ascending rows of seats. Aliens of all shapes and sizes filled those seats, watching as the humans were led to the platform. At the highest point sat a being unlike any they had seen before. It was tall and slender, with skin that looked like flowing silver and eyes that contained swirling galaxies. "That is High Counselor Vexalia," Zixtal whispered. "She is one of the founding species of the Confederation. She is over 4,000 years old." Frank tried not to stare. The idea of a being living that long was hard to comprehend. When everyone was seated, Vexalia rose. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, soft yet powerful. "We gather today to address a serious matter," she said. "Humans have violated one of our oldest laws by participating in a conflict between Confederation forces and the Draxian Empire." She gestured to a large screen that appeared in the air. It showed footage of the battle at Neva, with the Phoenix diving and firing using tactics that made the watching aliens murmur in what sounded like disapproval. "The law that humans violated was created for a reason," Vexalia continued. "It is time they understand why." The screen changed to show historical footage. It depicted another species, somewhat similar to humans but with gray skin and 6 fingers on each hand. "These were the Terathi," Vexalia explained. "Over 10,000 years ago, they nearly destroyed the early Confederation." The footage showed Terathi soldiers fighting with a brutality that made even Frank uncomfortable. They continued fighting when badly wounded. They used weapons designed to cause maximum pain. They employed psychological tactics that left enemies broken and afraid. "The Terathi were like you," Vexalia said, looking directly at the humans. "Adaptable, resourceful, and when threatened, uncompromisingly brutal." More footage played, showing the aftermath of Terathi attacks, destroyed worlds, traumatized survivors, entire species driven to extinction. "It took the combined forces of 27 species to finally defeat the Terathi," Vexalia said. "The cost was beyond measure. Billions died. 3 founding species of the Confederation were lost forever." She paused, letting the information sink in. "After that war, the ban was created. Any species showing the same characteristics as the Terathi would be kept from warfare, for the safety of all civilized space." Frank stood up. "With respect, High Counselor, humans are not the Terathi. We have evolved beyond our violent past." "Have you?" Vexalia asked. The screen changed again, now showing footage from the recent battle at Neva. Frank watched as George's drones attached to Draxian ships, causing them to fire on each other. He saw Lisa directing Nevan forces to use terrain in ways that trapped Draxian vessels. He watched his own ship performing maneuvers that no Confederation captain would ever attempt, putting crew safety at risk to gain tactical advantage. "Your tactics were effective," Vexalia admitted. "But they were also disturbing to many here. You showed the same disregard for established rules of engagement that the Terathi once did." An alien from the audience stood. It looked like a large insect with compound eyes and clicking mandibles. "The humans should be punished," it said. "They knowingly broke our laws." Another alien stood, this one resembling a tall plant with flowers where a face would be. "But they saved Neva," it pointed out. "Without their help, millions would have died." The room erupted in debate. Frank looked at his crew, seeing worry on their faces. Finally, he stepped forward. "May I speak?" he asked. Vexalia nodded, and the room grew quiet. "High Counselor, members of the Council," Frank began. I won't deny that humans can be violent. Our history is full of wars and conflict, but that's not all we are. He took a deep breath. The same traits that make us dangerous also allow us to survive, to adapt, to protect others. At Neva, we didn't fight for glory or territory. We fought to save lives. Frank gestured to his crew. Dr. Patel studies alien biology to help us understand each other better. Susan Rivera creates technology to connect different systems. George and Lisa use their skills not to destroy but to defend. He turned back to Vexalia. Yes, humans can be frightening in battle, but we fight hardest when protecting others. We risk our lives for people we've never met. We break rules when those rules would lead to innocent deaths. Frank pointed to the screen, where an image of Neva still showed. Ask the Nevans if they regret our help. Ask them if they would rather we had followed your rules and let them die. The room was silent for a long moment. Then an unexpected voice spoke up. It was Ambassador Zixtal. High Counselor, I have worked with humans for 20 years now. They are indeed as capable of violence as the Terathi were, but they are also capable of great compassion and self-sacrifice. Zixtal's skin shifted to a deep purple. Perhaps the mistake we made was not in banning humans from warfare, but in failing to recognize when that ban causes more harm than good. Vexalia considered this. You suggest we should lift the ban? No, Frank said, surprising everyone. The ban exists, for a reason. I understand that now. Humans fighting without limits would be dangerous for everyone, including ourselves. He stepped forward. But there must be a middle ground, a way for humans to help without becoming what you fear. Vexalia's galaxy eyes studied Frank for what felt like an eternity. The council will deliberate, she finally said. Until we reach a decision, you will remain here on Celestia. As the humans were led from the council hall, Amanda walked beside Frank. Do you think they'll listen? She asked. I don't know, Frank replied honestly. But at least now we understand why they fear us. And why they need us, George added quietly. Back in their quarters, the crew waited anxiously. Hours turned into days. They were treated well but given no information about the council's discussions. On the 5th day, Ambassador Zixtal returned with news. The council continues to debate, he told them, but there are developments you should know about. He activated a small device that showed a tactical display of the galaxy. While you've been here, the Draxians have launched more attacks. They're targeting key worlds, just as you predicted. The Confederation forces are struggling to respond effectively. Frank studied the display. The Draxians learned from Neva. They're attacking multiple targets simultaneously to split Confederation forces. Zixtal nodded, his skin turning a worried gray. Some on the council believe we might need human assistance despite the ancient laws. Frank exchanged looks with his crew. Tell them we're ready to help, he said. However, they'll let us. The Confederation Council debated for 3 more days while reports of Draxian attacks continued to arrive. The humans waited, growing more frustrated as the hours passed. Finally, Ambassador Zixtal came to their quarters, his skin a bright orange that they had never seen before. The council has reached a decision, he announced. You are requested to attend immediately. When they entered the council hall this time, the mood was different. The rows of seats were filled with tense aliens, their attention focused on tactical displays showing battles across multiple star systems. High Counselor Vexalia waited for them at the center of the hall. Her silver skin seemed less bright than before, and Frank wondered if she was tired. Commander Bennett, she began, her voice echoing through the chamber. The Confederation faces its greatest crisis since the Terathi War. The Draxians have studied our tactics for centuries. They know exactly how to counter our strategies. She gestured to the displays showing Confederation ships in retreat. The Council has deliberated extensively. Some believe we should maintain our ancient laws at any cost. Others argue that survival must take precedence. Vexalia paused, her galaxy eyes focused on Frank. We have reached a compromise. Humans will be allowed to serve as tactical advisors only, under strict supervision. You will not command ships or lead combat forces directly. Frank nodded. It wasn't what he had expected, but it was a start. "Thank you, High Counselor. When do we begin?" "Immediately," Vexalia replied. "You will be transported to the primary fleet facing the Draxian Armada. Admiral Kavor will meet you there." Within hours, the human team was aboard a fast Confederation vessel heading toward the front lines. As they traveled, they studied the latest battle reports and Confederation tactical manuals. "Their whole approach to warfare is different," Lisa said as she reviewed the material. "Everything is formal, almost ceremonial. Every move has a counter-move that everyone knows." "Like a dance instead of a fight," George added. Amanda looked thoughtful. "If the Draxians have studied this for centuries, they know all the steps too. That's why they're winning." Frank nodded. "So we need to teach the Confederation some new moves." The front lines were in chaos when they arrived. The Confederation fleet was massive, with ships of all sizes representing dozens of species. But they were fighting defensively, falling back under the coordinated Draxian assault. Admiral Kavor was a Denlarian, a species known for their logical minds and rigid adherence to tradition. His crystalline body structure glittered under the lights of the command center as he greeted the humans. "I must inform you that I oppose the Council's decision," he said bluntly. "War should be conducted according to established principles." "With respect, Admiral," Frank replied. "Those principles are leading to defeat." Kavor's crystal face couldn't show emotion, but his voice turned cold. "What would you suggest instead?" "Let us show you," Frank said. Over the next several days, the humans worked with the Confederation officers. They didn't fight directly, but they taught. Lisa introduced unpredictable strategies that confused the Draxian commanders. George showed engineers how to modify their weapons in ways the Draxians wouldn't expect. Susan helped communications teams create secure channels that the enemy couldn't intercept. Most importantly, Frank worked with Admiral Kavor, gradually, convincing him to abandon some of the formal rules that restricted Confederation tactics. "In human military history," Frank explained, "the leaders who won weren't always those with the biggest armies or the best weapons. They were the ones who adapted, who surprised their enemies, who did the unexpected." Slowly, the tide of battle began to turn. Confederation ships stopped retreating and started advancing. The Draxian commanders, accustomed to predictable enemies, found themselves facing strategies they had never seen before. The various alien species implemented human tactics in ways humans never could. Kernian pilots, with their 4 arms and heightened reflexes, performed maneuvers that would kill a human. Talarian engineers, who could mentally connect with machines, modified systems in ways George had only theorized. The Moravian troops, with their ability to regrow limbs, adapted human close combat techniques for boarding actions. But not all Confederation officers embraced the changes. Many were disturbed by what they saw as dishonorable tactics. After a particularly successful ambush that destroyed 3 Draxian capital ships, a group of officers confronted Frank. "This is not warfare," one of them said. "This is butchery." "This is survival," Frank countered, "and it's saving lives on your side." As the final battle approached, the Draxian Empire committed its main fleet to one massive attack. The Confederation forces, now using a mix of traditional tactics and human-inspired strategies, met them head-on. Frank and his team watched from the command center as the largest space battle in Confederation history unfolded around them. Ships danced and died among the stars. Weapons flashed like new constellations being born. When it was over, the Draxian fleet was in retreat, their forces broken. The Confederation had won. In the aftermath, as damaged ships limped back to friendly, space and rescue vessels searched for survivors, Frank noticed many of the alien officers looking at him and his team differently. Their expressions weren't entirely friendly. "They're afraid of us," Amanda said quietly. "They're afraid of what we taught them," Frank corrected. "Of what they learned about themselves." 2 weeks later, they returned to Celestia for the Council's final ruling. The Grand Hall was subdued as Vexalia addressed the gathered representatives. "The Draxian threat has been contained," she announced, "thanks in part to the assistance of our human allies." She turned to look at Frank and his team. "However, the Council has confirmed our original decision. The ban on human participation in Confederation conflicts will not be lifted. In fact, it will be strengthened. Murmurs filled the room, but Vexalia raised a hand for silence. We have seen what humans can do, not by fighting themselves, but by teaching others to fight as they do. This is perhaps even more concerning than direct human participation would have been. Frank stepped forward. High Counselor, we helped save the Confederation. Yes, Vexalia agreed, and we are grateful. But we have also been reminded why the ban exists. She gestured to a scribe who brought forward a document. A new clause will be added to the Confederation Charter, she said. It reads, "Now we know why humans are banned from galactic wars, not because we fear what they would do to our enemies, but because we fear how they would change us." The Council voted immediately, and the measure passed with overwhelming support. As the humans prepared to return to Earth, Ambassador Zixtal came to see them one last time. "You should know that not all of us voted for the stricter ban," he said. "Some of us believe there is much we could learn from humans." "What happens now?" Frank asked. "You return to Earth as heroes," Zixtal replied, "and as a bridge between our peoples. The Council has created a new position for you, diplomatic liaisons with special advisory status." "Not soldiers," Amanda noted. "No," Zixtal agreed. "Not soldiers, but perhaps something more important." As their ship departed Celestia, Frank looked out at the stars. The journey had started with a question. Why were humans banned from galactic wars? They had their answer now, and perhaps, he thought, it was for the best. Humans wouldn't fight the Confederation's wars, but they would help protect the peace in other ways. They would find their place among the stars not as warriors, but as teachers, advisors, and friends. "Where to now, Commander?" Peter asked from the pilot's seat. Frank smiled. "Home, but I think our journey is just beginning."